Hey YouTube, what's going on, and welcome back to Cairo and His Things. Today we're going to do things a little bit differently. I just got this Wurkkos TS23 in the mail. I have not opened up the box at all, so we're actually going to open it up and take a look at it together for the first time. And then from there, after we get an initial look at it, I'll then cut to a later date where I will actually do a review after I've had time to test it. So right off the bat here, we see that it's got a listing of 5,000 lumens and 482 meter throw. No actual moonlight mode. Looks like it goes only down to 10 lumens. So that, in my opinion, is going to be a low. The fact that it's got 482 lumens, or meters, and the depth of the head here that I can already tell, I'm guessing this is going to have a throw emitter, which XHP 70 and 6,000 kelvins. Yeah, so this is probably going to be a pretty tight hotspot on this one, I'm guessing. I'm thinking that might be the 70.3, the D, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. So let's go ahead and open this up and take a look at it. Looks like it got a little bit damaged. The box did in shipping. Not a big deal though. Alright, we've got our manual. So look at that later. Standard things that these always come with. You usually get a lanyard and some gaskets, which is exactly what we got. I can already tell you in person here, this is a little bit of a bigger light than I was expecting. I thought that this was going to be a bit more pocket size, but that looks more jacket carry size. We got USB-C to C, or no, actually USB-C to A. Okay. You never know if you're going to get C to A or C to C anymore. But as long as it's got C on one side, I'm good with it. It looks like that's all that's left in the box. So we'll go ahead and move that. Man, this thing is heavy. I don't know too much about this light, to be honest, yet. Haven't even looked into it that much. Wurkkos offered to send it out for review. And so, of course, I'm always down to try new Wurkkos out. But right off the bat, I could tell it's got a tiny little battery indicator here. Let's go ahead and pop off the battery, which I thought just the tail was going to come loose, but it looks like it's the head that comes off. We'll take off that cover that's always on there, and we've got a 21700 at 5,000 milliamps, 3.6 volts. All right, this thing feels actually pretty sturdy. It has got some weight to it, especially in that head. Okay, and as you see, we've got that two-way pocket clip here. Nice little discreet USB-C recharging port. I love this tail cap right here. Very, very reminiscent of the Sofirn SC32. Although I will say, let me actually grab this SC32 real quick. All right, so here we've got the SC32. That gives me a real nice, firm, solid click. Feels great. This, on the other hand, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's not giving a solid click. It's, I mean, it is working, but it's just, it almost has like a little bit of a loose feeling. It doesn't feel as good to click down. It feels like there's a little bit of play there in the button. Whereas there's not really play in this one. It's just a real solid click. I love that button. So this is of the same design on the actual plate that they use for the button here on the E-switch. So it's the same little plate, it seems like, or at least for the most part. But this one's got a lot of play in it on this TS32. And I'll just go ahead and show you the size here. When I say that this thing's a little bigger than I expected, take a look at that. I'll tell you what, all these things we're covering here in the initial review, we might not have to cover too much in the actual review. But, all right, so I'll say grip-wise, feels good to grip, actually. Hand snugs in there real nicely behind the head there. That feels good in hand. That really does. So I'm going to take a guess that this is probably meant to be a more tactical style light based on what I'm seeing so far. Like I said, I really didn't look this up. They offered to send it. I said, go ahead. We do have an orange peel reflector there on the head, which means they're trying to spread out the beam. So let me take a look at this. Oh yeah, so we've got a tight hotspot. So what I think that they're probably trying to do is make it more usable, because if it just comes out too tight, then you've got just a dedicated thrower. I think what they're probably trying to do is give you at least a little bit more of a more usable area on this tight beam, because if you're using this for duty, for police or military or whatever, it's probably, you're going to want a little bit more light to work with than just a straight shot beam sometimes. We actually have little notches here. Just notice this on the bezel. I'm already liking the bezel, just the cutout. That's plenty good enough. But we got little notches on here. So that's clearly meant to be a striking bezel right there. And like I said, it is a bigger head. Turn the light on. Looks like it's not on full battery, orange. I'm guessing that's probably between 30 to 70% battery off the top of my head. Otherwise, though, so far I'm really liking what I'm seeing. So we've got a tight hot spot with orange peel reflector. We've got a bezel cut out with little notches in it for a striking bezel. We've got a big heavy-duty 21700 battery, discrete USB-C flap, two-way clip, which nobody's clipping this to their hat, just saying this is too heavy for that. Feels great in hand, though. So what I'll do is I'll use this for a few days. I'll use this under the mindset of if I was active duty. You know, right now, would I want to carry this on my person? How does it feel in pocket? Does it need to just be a jacket or holster carry? Let me carry it around for a few days. I'll try the beam out. We'll come back and do a full review here. So I'll cut over to that, and then we'll also do some beam shots. Alright guys, it's been a couple weeks now that I've had the TS23. I've got to carry it around, use it and everything. So let's go over the basic specs on it, and then we'll look at beam shots outside, and then we'll cover my thoughts on the light. So as far as size, we're looking at 138 millimeters in length, or 5.43 inches. And on diameter, the max diameter we have here on the head is 41 millimeters, or 1.61 inch. And on the weight, we've got 173 grams without the battery. As we saw in the beginning of the video, it does have a 21700 battery in it. Now for that emitter, we did cover this briefly, I believe, but we have an XHP 70.3 emitter, and that does have a boost driver. So a boost driver on this is pretty insane considering the price of this light. Usually you're going to get a basic FET driver. Usually like lights that are in the $80+ range, that's where you start seeing like a buck driver. So seeing a boost driver in this is really, really awesome. Okay, so for output on turbo, we're looking at 5,000 lumens. That's only going to last for a couple minutes, and then you're going to get a big step down. But on high, you're going to get 1,800 lumens at 3.75 hours. On medium, you're going to get 800 lumens at 6 hours. Low mode, you're going to get 300 lumens at 11 hours. On eco, we're looking at 50 lumens for 45 hours. And their moonlight mode, which is 10 lumens at 300 hours. And the strobe does match the turbo at 5,000 lumens. Now these are all Wurkkos claim measurements. I don't have an actual lumen tester to give you the specifics there. Usually you're going to be within a couple hundred lumens there on the numbers, but that is what Wurkkos is claiming. As far as the distance, we're going to get 482 meters on turbo and 58,000 candela. Now for the user interface on this, so we've got two different modes, standard mode and we've got tactical mode, which I really, really like to see, because this does, I mean, it's got glass breaker on it. It's got a great beam profile for first responders, self-defense, however you want to look at it. It's got the tail switch. It's got a great grip. I mean, it's got a lot of things that you'd want in a first responder light, self-defense light, whatever. So with that said, we do have the standard mode, which is really basic. So it's going to be hold for moonlight from off, click from off, to go into memory mode. So if I leave it off, or if I turn it on to high mode and turn it off, it's going to go back into high mode. Whereas if I go to low, turn it back on, so memory goes back into whatever the last light output you used was. So we're going to click and hold through to cycle through between our low, medium, or eco, low, medium, and high. Having that eco mode in there is throwing me off. Double click for turbo, so that is actually not in the standard cycle. And triple click for strobe. Okay. The only way to get back into moonlight is holding from off. Now, what I really like about this is that it does not force a lockout. It doesn't have an auto lockout. It has a manual lockout. So from off, 4 clicks and you'll get that double flash. Now if I try to turn the light on, all it does is flash at me telling me it's in moonlight, or it's in lockout mode. So we'll turn it off by clicking 4 times. Now from on, if you want to switch between standard mode and tactical mode, 4 clicks while on, and that will then switch you over. So now we're in tactical mode. So now I can still reach moonlight from holding from off. Otherwise, a standard click, you're always going to go directly into turbo. You will not have to double click. As soon as you turn that light on, it's turbo mode. And you have 2 modes there. You can hold if you want to go down to medium. So if you're a first responder, but let's say that you don't want to blast somebody with turbo, but you have it in tactical mode, hold from off to go into your moonlight. You can go directly into that if you don't want to go straight into turbo. Otherwise, when you turn this on, you're getting full output. Now, if you hold, or I'm sorry, if you double click while on, that takes you into strobe. Okay? So this is specifically meant to be a tactical mode. I think it's actually a really good tactical mode. Super, super simple to use. And so we're going to actually go ahead and swap it back over to regular mode. And that's that. So UI is actually pretty simple, but I think it's great. I think it's intuitive, and it works really well for its intended uses. So let's go ahead and take a look at some beam shots. So we saw the beam shots outside. So let's get into my thoughts on this light. So for one, the price is like $35 if you order it direct from Wurkkos, and I want to say maybe 45-ish on Amazon, something like that. I have a case. It's like an Apache case, and I cut out little foam inserts for specific flashlights. And so to fill this case up, I'm only going to cut out foam for a flashlight that I really, really love, that I want to keep in this case. And especially because once you take one out, it's kind of hard to find another one to fill that same spot if you end up liking something different more, something more later on. And so I have actually replaced a light out of there with this Wurkkos TS23. That's how much I love this, that I keep it in my case. This is just great. I know when I first opened this with you guys and went over things, I liked it. I was a little bit hesitant on a couple things, but now that I've actually had a couple weeks to use it, I've fallen in love with this light. I'm not going to say it's my favorite light of all time, but I've fallen in love with it. So, for one thing I remember mentioning is that there's some play here in the tail switch. So, when you press down on it, when you initially put your thumb to it, it doesn't feel solid. You know, you feel a little bit of wiggle there, and then as you press down, it's not just as stiff and nice as I'd like on the switch. But with that said, even with that, I still, this switch, just the actual plate that they use, is so good. Just like the Sofirn ST32, I've fallen in love with it. If this had no play at all in there and just went down real nice and stiff every time, this would be probably amongst my favorite tail light. But it's still really, really good, and I find myself just pressing it and using it all the time. It feels phenomenal in hand. The more and more that I've used this, it just feels so great when you're gripping this in your hand. Like there's no hot spots. Like it feels so solid, and like if I actually had to use this as a first responder, I would feel comfortable and confident in this light. I tend to run a lanyard instead of any type of clip. That's just how I like to run things. And I did notice that this fits in my holster for my Brynite tactical light as well. So that's pretty nice that I actually have a holster I can use for this as well. If anybody wants the name of that holster, I can send that over in comments. But yeah, so as you saw in the beam shots, that beam profile is really, really nice. Mostly when you get a long range high candela light, you're getting a very thin beam. That can be useful, that can be good in scenarios and circumstances, but this one, it does that while also giving you a ton of usable beam outside of that. The combination of throw and spill on this light is just so good. I mean, I've just absolutely fallen in love with this light. I highly, highly recommend it, especially for the price. And you got to consider this having a boost driver in this. It should really rack up the price on this, but it doesn't. The price is still so inexpensive. I see no reason not to get this flashlight. Highly recommend it for everyone. I'm really, really liking it, and you will see it in an upcoming video where I'm going to do a tactical flashlight comparison, and I'll have probably 10 to 20 lights in there that I'm just doing a lineup of, talking about, comparing in different ways, and you'll see this actually head to head with those lights and how well it does. But this light is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. I've fallen in love with it, and I've been using it all the time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.